Okay, today I want to talk about usury because it is an important topic. It is often a misunderstood topic in our modern times because we tend not to understand how the modern economy works and how money works. So, usury is obviously forbidden in religion, most religions, and we often understand usury to be the unfair economic practice of charging people extra due to their desperation. So, for example, if someone comes to me and he is in desperate need of money or things, and I tell him, okay, look, because he's desperate, I say, look, I'm going to give you this amount, X amount of money, $10, and next week I want back $20. Okay, and there's really no way for him to pay back the $20, but he takes it anyway because while he's desperate, he doesn't have a choice. And then next week I come along and I confiscate all his things to make up the $20 that he needs to pay me back. Now we do have this obviously in many countries. This is in fact the implemented system through many governments and banks, of course. Governments in conjunction with the bank. So for example, the sheriff will come, lock your business, confiscate all your equipment because you owe money, right? To a newspaper. It happened to me once. They wanted to take my printer away because what happened was I had an internet cafe, and I did advertising through a newspaper, and the agent missold me on the advertising. And what happened was I ended up paying a lot more than what I agreed to initially on the phone. And then of course I defaulted on the payment because I was not within my budget to pay that much for advertising. And next thing, the very next month, the sheriff was at my shop coming to claim my possessions that was worth tens of thousands, right, for a measly 1,000 of what was outstanding on the account. So that's an example of usury in these countries that obviously don't believe in religion and God. Okay, but then we conflate usury. Of course, we that is an example of usury. Okay. Now we obviously conflate usury with the one being charged and the one accepting the arrangement. So there's a difference. First of all, the one who accepts the arrangement that is included or involves usury out of desperation, of course, there is no crime there because they did not have a choice, or it's a lesser crime than the one obviously who profits or makes a livelihood out of people's desperation. So like loan sharks and banks. Okay. But now it's a bit more complicated than that, okay? The system in which we live, the economic system in which we live is broken, and we are unfortunately in the middle of a economic scheme, widely. We're in the middle of an economic scheme. So the economic scheme we're in the middle of is where your money is devalued while it's in your pocket. So let me explain how that happens, okay? So let's say, for example, you earn $4,000 or $5,000 in a month, and now you keep that $5,000, you save it, okay? By next month, because of inflation, that $5,000 which you already earned, so you already spent your labor to earn the money. But by next month, that $5,000 is worth 90% of what it was worth originally. and then gets compounded, so on and so forth. After a year, your 5,000 US dollars, because of inflation, might be down by 60%. So now it's not anymore uh, equivalent to what it was when you earned it a year ago. So what you could buy for $5,000 a year prior, you can no longer buy. You can buy roughly half of that later on. So what's essentially happening with your labor is that it's being devalued. Your sweat is being stolen while in your pocket. So this is the nature of the economy. Why is this the nature of the economy? It's because real goods and services, meaning the exchange of goods and services for tangible things in the real economy, is undervalued, and then the manipulation of the economy in terms of stock markets, Bitcoin, trading, making money off of exchanges and trades, etc., forex, all these things, that is inflated. Okay, so money is no longer underpinned by real goods and services and real labor and real productivity, and instead money is being inflated. Inflation is being driven off the charts by fake ways of making money. It's fake because it's just a manipulation of the markets and the economy, and that's how most wealthy people, not all, but most wealthy people, have some of that going for them, or a lot of that going for them, to make their money, or what they see as maintaining their money anyway, because everybody knows stagnant money is money lost. Okay, so they need to keep up with the times, and so they need to obviously be able to make their money grow in some way. If they're not directly doing business with the money, then it is in some sort of investment to help it at least remain, beat inflation anyway. Okay, so that being the case with money, with fiat currencies, when we look at the issue of usury now, it's obviously a lot more complex than how we would see it, or how we would have seen it in the past. We could not have imagined a situation of fiat currency, mass inflation, hyperinflation, market instruments, manipulation of money, etc. All these things are happening now, and it's not merely an exchange of real goods and services that's going on. Okay, so money is essentially a placeholder, or it used to be a placeholder. What we have now is money. Paper money was once a placeholder for actual gold and silver. Okay, so what happened was, instead of moving your gold from one location to another location, maybe subject to highway robbery, etc., what people used to do was they would write a note and say, look, I have this much gold. So you'll go with a promissory note to another location, buy what you need with a promissory note, and later on the gold will be transported to that place under guard, right? And then the person would receive the gold later. But eventually, because they could trust these promissory notes so much, they would just trade. You would keep the promissory note and then give the promissory note on to someone else when he wants to buy something, and then the gold would be transferred to that person. And then eventually the gold would not even be given, it would just be held in reserve. And then this was what it first became a gold-backed currency, a currency backed by gold. So that what money used to be. So when money used to be that, you could have said that since there is intrinsic value to the money, that demanding excess in what was given, for example, as a loan, that is unreasonable, would be usury. And the key word here is unreasonable, okay? Because there must be an incentive for anyone who is giving you the loan, there must be an incentive. Okay, why is he going to give you the loan? Is giving loans an instrument of the economy, or is it just an instrument of brotherhood and love, and let me help the brother and give him some money, and whether he gives it back to me or not, well, it doesn't matter, and whether I make a loss on it, it doesn't matter. That's usually not how people operate. Okay, yes, that is how good people operate, but everyone is not good and everyone is not unselfish, and the question is, what is in it for me? And so when the deal is upfront, first of all, and it is not capitalizing off of the desperation of the poor, and it is not unreasonable, or it is not impossible for the person who's going to pay back the loan to pay it back, right? Then it doesn't have the elements of what I described earlier as being usury. Okay, there's no trickery involved, there's no surprise, and the person who's going to make the payments or pay back the loan is able to pay it back. It is within the within his ability. He can afford it. So it's not a last desperate attempt to get food. It's not that. Okay, it's a loan where the person can reasonably predict the ability to pay it back. Often it is a loan also whereby the person is probably going to do some business with that money, and he can reasonably predict that he will be able to pay it back, and the interest on the loan is not excessive. This does not meet the definition and understanding of what usury is. Okay, so the simple definition of usury is that it is excess on the principal amount, and then it's called usury. That is not usury. Okay, that is interest. Interest does not automatically equal usury. Okay, excessive interest is usury. Now, excessive interest is usually regulated by the country. Every country has regulations on interest. So to make sure that the interest is within the market, within the ability of people to repay it, and also that people with credit acts, people cannot be given loans that are excessive, that they are unable to pay back. So there are criteria that's enforced by the government whereby banks have to deny loans to people who do not meet the criteria or cannot realistically pay it back. So these are all checks and balances already in place in most countries to hold banks to account. Now, do countries sometimes fail at holding banks to account? Do countries fail to control the interest rates? Yes, they do. There are excessive interest rates, legislated excessive interest rates, that do tend to favor the rich and exploit the poor. You'll also notice that because loans are based on risk assessment, the poor are a high risk bunch of people to loan money to, and so their interest rates tend to be higher than a low risk loan by someone wealthier would obviously be able to pay it back. So in that way also, banks tend to filter money upwards to those who have money. So those who have money have better options when using the banks, and those who don't have money have less options when using the bank. So you'll see that also when people are poor, they struggle to get a loan when they actually need it, and when people are rich, the bank will actually send you notifications and say, here's $1 million loan for you if you need it. They'll just offer it to you, right? So there are obviously, and I'm not saying that interest absolutely does not equal usury. Interest can equal usury, and interest also at times when it's a low interest rate does not equal usury. When interest is in general below inflation, it can never be usury. In fact, if it's below inflation, the bank is making a loss. Okay? When interest equals inflation, then you are technically paying back the same amount of money that you're getting, so the bank isn't making any gains there on that. Okay? When interest is above inflation, then the bank is making a return on the loan, and that would be usury, okay, if it is excessive and unreasonable. So that is the way I see in this modern economy. Obviously the economy is broken, okay, like you are being stolen from anyway. Let me just put it that way. Just the way the economy works, the way currencies work, the way money works, the way money is manipulated, the average hard-working person who actually contributes goods and services to the economy, not the financial markets person, is being stolen from all the time anyway. Okay, money in your pocket is money being devalued. For as long as money is in your pocket, it is being devalued. That's the reality of the situation. And the average working class person does not have doesn't have the knowledge to invest money, and also doesn't have the capital often to invest money. They need the money on a month-to-month basis. So this is the problem with the economy. Now, can we fix it? And here's what I propose. Now, from the perspective, obviously, to really fix it well, you need power, and it probably needs to come from governments, okay? But let's face it, unless there is an incentive for the government, for example, obedience to God. So in Islamic countries, the banks are much better because there's an interest rate of 1% or 2%, which is fine, which isn't usury, okay? Although people are still, the very strict people were saying, yes, that's not allowed, etc. But they fail to understand how money works, of course. They only understand what they read in books 1,000 years old, from when gold and silver was the standard, which is ideal. It should be the standard again. So governments can implement where they have a gold-backed currency, and then it will sort of reduce the amount of theft that's happening, theft on money that's in people's pockets, because the money is being devalued as people earn it and as people have it in their pockets, and they already spent their labor, like I said, but now they are obviously losing the value of their money while they sleep. So that's the theft that's happening. That can be stopped with a gold-backed currency. We do have nations trying that. We have Russia trying that. We have economic alliances, BRICS, discussing that, but that is obviously going to help the ordinary person. So that's one solution, but that's from the government perspective. What can ordinary people do? Ordinary people can, when they do trade, when they loan money to each other, they can benchmark it against an equivalent of stable value. So it doesn't have to be gold, okay? Look, we don't have gold. Look, us poor people, we don't have gold lying around, right? And because of the manipulation of currency, gold, the price of gold right now is going up like mad. So, you would end up paying back somebody 3 times the amount over 6 months or 1 year if you're going to benchmark it against gold. So what you can do is you can benchmark your loan against staples. So you can have a basket of staples, for example, bread, flour, wheat, etc. You can create a basket of staples and say, look, the amount of money I'm prepared to give you as a loan is going to be equivalent to 100 baskets of staples, which you've now taken a diverse range of products as a basket, and then you pay back this money in staples. Okay, the equivalent of the staples, the diverse basket of products that you gave. So obviously, because of inflation, hyperinflation, etc., you're gonna obviously pay back more, and often you're gonna pay back more than what the standard interest rate is, to be honest, right? But the point is of doing that is, first of all, okay, there's the issue of permissibility, right? This is now this is a God sanctioned fair play, okay. And also, if a lot of people do that, it will have a stabilizing effect, I believe, on the currency, because it will sort of counteract inflation and the manipulation of the markets, because they are essentially not using money anymore as money, but they're using it again as a placeholder for staples, right? Because the sooner people start understanding that there's value in stuff, there's value in the plants that grow, there's value in the food that we grow, the animals we raise, the bread that we bake, that's the value. The value is in that and not in the currency. The quicker we will basically get rid of the money market people, all these people whose livelihoods, and that's the vast majority that drive up that inflation, these people that just trade on currencies and insurance and banking and money mechanisms and loans, etc., all these sin industries in a way, they will start to become less relevant, and the economy will again start to even out, and the middle class will again emerge by sidelining these people. Okay, so that's what I would suggest. Another way to go, which is a lot of banks, even banks are going that way, realizing the viability of Islamic banking. Islamic banking is also a good way to go. There are ways of rebranding interest, in a sense, in Islamic banking. But then again, I just told you now, interest doesn't equal usury per se. And so where the interest rate or the repayment rate, let's put it that way, let's not call it interest just for their sake, is much less than any other conventional loan, why would you not go with the Islamic banking concepts of profit share and purchasing the item for you at a higher rate and then working out a fixed repayment based on that. So what the Islamic banking essentially does is, you go to the bank and you say, look, I want to buy this house. It's going to cost me $200,000. The bank will say, okay, look, we're going to upfront that money, buy the house for you, and resell it to you at $400,000, and then give you a fixed repayment. Or 3 times the amount, 600,000, give you a fixed, depends how many years you're going to pay it back after, okay, over. So we're going to give you a fixed repayment over this period of time, 10, 20, 30 years of X amount, and they will do their calculations based on the market, of course, based on inflation, based on the interest rates, based on everything. They'll decide what that figure is going to be. So we're going to resell the house to you for 600,000, having bought it for 200,000, upfronted that for you, and you will pay a fixed amount over X amount of years. So then that doesn't qualify as interest, because it's a trade that you've agreed to, and you're paying back a fixed amount, and they're making a profit of $400,000 over the period of 20 years. That's kind of what the Islamic bank does. That is, of course, not unlawful technically, okay? The issue isn't, the issue is there is a fixed payment. So to that end, some scholars have said that even the loan that you take, the home loan that you take, for example, with a fixed payment, even if it's a bit more expensive, but because there's a fixed payment, that is better than the one with a variable rate, because they can hit you over your head with anything. Depends on if the economy tanks and you basically running a heavy loss. On the other hand, I mean, if you take the fixed payment and the economy tanks, then the bank would be running a loss. So there is a sense of loss on either end, which in a sense also sort of ties into the principle of a trade having the possibility of both gain and loss. So I basically, those are some of the ideas I have around the issue of usury. I'm not a judge in this matter. I'm also not a person of immense expertise in the legal technicalities of the matter, but I am a person who lives in this world and who trades in this world, who lives on the ground and who subscribes to religion and would like to adhere to the principles of religion, but also in a reasonable and feasible manner. Okay, there are many people I know, lots of people, who will never own their own house likely because they can't afford to upfront $1 million or 500,000 or whatever, 200,000. They can't upfront that. They won't be able to upfront it ever, but they also will never take out a loan because it is not allowed in their minds. They believe it's not allowed. So they just never will, and they'll always rent. And then their children will always rent, for example, and it's just they will keep renting. And the irony, I mean, about it is that the people they're renting from took out the loan and they're paying the loan of that person by renting out the property, but they will never themselves own the property in the end, whereas these people they're renting from will own the property in the end. I'm one of such person. I'm a landlord. People rent properties from me, of which I own in the end, because I don't have a problem with taking a loan from the bank that is within reason, within the mechanisms of the market and the economy, and it is possible to pay it back within reason, it is fixed, etc. So that's my take, and you need to do your own research, consult the people that you of knowledge that you trust, that have a good grasp not only of the books of 1,000 years old or 800 or 500 years old when things were different, but who understand the modern market mechanisms, the economy, how fiat currencies work, inflation, interest, etc., and how that ties in with the ethos of not practicing unfair economic policies, and also not supporting unfair economic policies. Thank you very much.